learning. Now, though, there's a blight being placed on this success by the fact that children's centres are being subject to heavy-handed Ofsted inspections. And we have yet another accountability industry being set up, providing a major distraction for staff and parents. But challenges are not just with schools, but with society ahead. The quick fix. Building and maintaining a good school takes time. Seeing a quick data fix by pushing children through hoops does not embed learning. We must move away from the football metaphor of saying that unless the manager achieves promotion this season, then they should face the sack. On that basis, we would see the departure of many more secretaries of state. There is the need for effective and continuing professional development that resonates with the school culture. We have simplistic messages going out from the media. Schools are used as easy targets, and the national media carry a largely negative commentary. This ignores the substantial success achieved by our children every day. The celebrity-based and all-embracing soundbite media in modern life elevates the shallow. It does not encourage taking on the difficult or hard task, which might not be immediately rewarding. It does not encourage perseverance in the face of adversity. It does not encourage positive risk-taking. It does encourage the soft option of gambling. It does encourage children to be grown up before their time and in the loss of childhood and innocence that this means. Consumerism needs to be balanced with the real. Spending time at a football match with your child rather than always seeing it on the television. Going swimming together or having a picnic has to be encouraged rather than just the latest fad on the games machine in the electronic bedroom. We also have the evil of drugs. We require fresh thinking. What has been attempted to date by successive governments has failed. And the metaphor of dealers near the school gates and in every community must end. The market in drugs must be destroyed. Too many young people are ending up in the criminal justice system to feed their habits. A magistrate friend of mine estimates that 60% of cases before him are in some way drug-related. And yet, what do we hear in the general election? Silence. The burgeoning prison and young offender institutions are a testament to this failure. As with racism, we need to be part of the answer. Schools play a vital role in community cohesion, but we must expect others to be partners with us in society. Professor Andy Hargreaves speaks of professional parental responsibility. I would expect any future government to echo this. We must expect parents to be full partners with schools and to support our work. The creation of a local commissioner to hear parental complaints and compliance legislation again moves us in the direction of lacking trust in schools and governing bodies. Is there any hope in the election manifestos? A hero of mine is Dickens. The other night, I had a dream. I have quite a few dreams. And in this dream, there came a clunking of chains, followed by 3 spirits. The first spirit was a vision from sanctuary buildings via Keble College, Oxford. It was the Secretary of State. As we know, the number of colleagues applying for headship is very low. So what are we going to do to make it more attractive? He and his closest advisors put their collective wisdom together and came up with the following manifesto promise. Yes, let's introduce parent votes to remove school leadership teams. That'll do the trick. There followed a vision with a full mock-up of sanctuary buildings via Lady Margaret Hall, Oxford. It was the shadow Secretary of State. There have been huge structural changes in schools and public sector funding will be very tight. What does the education system need? He and his closest advisors put their collective wisdom together and came up with Swedish-style free schools, which will allow all and sundry to set up and run schools and take critical funding away from the rest of us. The third vision was someone with a rail ticket to the sanctuary buildings via King's College, Cambridge. It was the hung Parliament Secretary of State. The blame culture has a demoralising effect upon hard-working teachers and school leaders. So what shall we start our manifesto with? He and his closest advisors put their collective wisdom together and came up with this introduction. Too many children are still leaving school without the knowledge and skills to be successful. Finding a good school is a struggle. Lessons don't always stretch the brightest or support those who need more help. Talk about blame culture. Where's the celebration of what we do every day in any of those manifestos? How far are our politicians away from reality? We are offered more ineffective accountability, more structural change, and more blame. My concern is that current and prospective governments have a Gradgrind view of education, which is materialist in outlook and designed for a bygone age. The Conservatives look back with rosy-coloured spectacles to a time when Ladybird books ruled and there was a policeman on every street corner, and perhaps two. Well, Michael, this did not exist for most of us, and many children were condemned not to reach their academic potential by selection at 11. I work in a community where the average child has heard 17 million words. I live in a community where the average child has heard 50 million words by the age of 5 and had a whole range of first-hand experiences. I would not suggest that materialism is unimportant to those without modern essentials. It is that we are not, as a society, providing the riches of the mind or the creativity. T.S. Eliot put it, it's in fact a part of the function of education to help us escape from the intellectual and emotional limitations of our time. The 1956 Doris Day song, Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future is not ours to see, Que sera, sera. The song did win an Oscar for Best Original Song in a Film, but the sentiments must be challenged. Another hero who did challenge is Paulo Freire. Freire saw the struggle for popular education and informal education of adults as liberationist. We should be liberationist. He saw those without power in society transforming their lives. Freedom indeed. Carmen sat in the front row, was a 33-year-old mum with 2 girls living in my local community. She wanted to help in school. From this, she became a teaching assistant and gained MVQ 2 and 3, followed by a foundation degree and B.Ed honours with 6 marks away from her first class. Carmen took part in the graduate teacher programme and received QTS. Her practice was and is excellent. She progressed to early years foundation stage leader and now is an assistant head teacher without leaving that community. That wouldn't happen this year. With the economic downturn, some are looking for shelter in teaching until the storm abates. We must remain a vocational profession with the highest calling. There are 32 routes into teaching. We should still look at it in vocation profession. It also challenges the education establishment who are involved in developing policies and initiatives. They must come from a wider spectrum of society. How many understand the searing experiences of growing up in some of our inner area communities? Last year, Oxford accepted 12 children from free school meal backgrounds. To doff our caps in deference to the power holders without accountability on their part can lead us to the banking disaster that is causing untold damage to private and public sectors in our and many other countries. The challenges of the next 40 years are complex. The personal, national and global challenges of climate and environmental change and its effect upon the natural world, including mankind, are manifest. It is our children's and our grandchildren's world we are custodians of. How are we preparing them for their decision-making? Or as Tamsin Elliott, when aged 8, put it, "The world is in such an awful state. When I'm older, I'll make it great. No more wars or pollution. How I wish I could find a solution. No more oil in the sea. This won't happen just because of me. So I'll find some people to help me, and together we'll save the world." There are positive programs such as UNICEF's Rights Respecting Schools Award, the Transition Towns Movement, and the International Schools Award, amongst many others, which engage children in deep learning. What does international experience tell us? A common theme during the rounds is that in 40 years' time, Africa with the lowest wage rates will be the workshop of the world. Southeast Asia and India will be the businesses and entrepreneurs of the world, and Europe will be the pensioners of the world. Now, Mrs. Oakley in 1958 in Gorse Hill Juniors ensured that I knew this didn't cover the whole globe, but the theme is still relevant. Singapore has some primary schools, which I've seen, where whole classroom walls are covered in a computer screen. And children in Second Lifestyle can place themselves as characters in the Second World War in Singapore Harbour and gain information and make decisions as they participate. They can also do this from home with their parents at night. Engagement. I would love to have that in Swindon, with its heritage of the Great Western Railway. I'd love my children to be engine drivers and furnace people and architects. And other areas of the country for children to engage with the past, but with learning for the present and the future. State of the art. We have to become state of the art, but we need the investment to achieve that. Benjamin Disraeli stated that upon the education of the people of this country, the fate of this country depends. We look forward to an interdependent world, but we must also think through what the UK vision of excellence in that world should be. That vision, excitement, and engagement cannot be created or communicated through structural changes, league tables, and the dead hand of command and control from sanctuary buildings. It is interesting to be compared with Finland, as Andy did this morning. Finnish teachers have class sizes of no more than 24. They have a fully comprehensive state system. Have ministers checked their assessment regime? There's not a single external test for any child under the age of 15 in Finland. What they do is they liberate their school leadership and provide the development funding to all their schools. There is often referral to PISA and similar international comparisons of academic attainment between countries. The two features, however, that stand out are firstly that UK children come near the bottom of the well-being comparisons with OECD. Although there is much hand-wringing, it has led to little practical response from government. And secondly, a key factor is that there is much more disparity within countries than between them. So there are often false comparisons. Parental occupational status and socio-economic background has a much greater effect on student performance than whether you operate an education system with one structure or another. These, then, are some of the challenges and inhibitors to progress. So what approaches and culture do we need for success? Trust is vital. As Andy Hargreaves states, active trust. We have to be persuasive in developing this. Local stakeholder governance is essential. We start from a positive base. Surveys indicate that parents have high trust in their school leaders. We believe in hope. We have relentless optimism for our children. Mutuality. This is no cooperative word, but it suggests that there are shared interests which should encourage partnership and being connected and a landscape where schools collaborate and working together rather than remain isolated in unfettered competition. Most parents in this country send their children to their local school. Some voices are now even contemplating a lottery for secondary school places as the only way forward. As Ted Ragg said, the idea that the marketplace takes care of quality by itself is one of the most bogus arguments that has emerged in recent years. Schools, not structures. Deal and Patterson in 2009 suggest of late far too much emphasis has been placed on reforming schools from outside. While policymakers are pressing for new structures, too little attention has been paid on how schools can be shaped from within. Excellent schools can be at the heart of every community. Schools which teachers and the vast majority of parents can ensure are positive, caring, and intellectually challenging, and happy places. It cannot be developed through a fragmentation of schooling, where structural change will no doubt favour the metropolitan chattering classes and free schools, to the detriment of every other child who have larger classes and fewer resources throughout the country. We must then trust schools and school leaders to raise standards. Successful school cultures have leadership emanating from many people, authentic leadership that maintains and supports learning for all children, as well as learning for all staff. Successful cultures have leaders who know how important schools are to children and want to make them the best places they can be. Early intervention is vital. This cannot be compromised and should be enhanced. The every child a talker, every child a reader, every child counts are absolutely essential. Schools are organic with all organisations. Over a few years, we can be on top form some of the time, pretty good most of the time, and occasionally have a hiccup. Just at the time, the school might want some support, which if carefully and jointly targeted and accepting of responsibility is effective. Instead, what happens? Along comes Ofsted. And instead we get a punitive, clunking fist which demoralises rather than enthuses. It talks of raising expectations and then only uses the big stick to do this. We should remove the blame culture and celebrate success. School leaders and teachers do not walk into schools each morning and say, "How am I going to lower standards today?" We must challenge government to stop directing schools from the latest tabloid headline or the latest soundbite discussion on breakfast TV. Ministers should understand that Waterloo Road is a fictional series, not a documentary. We share the vision of every school a good school and stretching the minds of the next generation of children. There is a challenge for the media here. Be courageous and celebrate our children's effort and success. You are part of their well-being. I do not want my children and my parents, every time they open a national newspaper, to see the latest denigration of schools. We have to ensure schools are subject to fair and effective accountability. Tim Brighouse and Ted Ragg identified the need for an inspection system that provided support and less destructive pressure. What do we need to achieve this? Well, it's here. It's the NAHT Charter at this conference, with its fair and real accountability. It accepts that we are accountable to society and parents in particular, and ensures that can support progress, not hinder it. This is not a soft option. It is rigorous and ensures that schools can become, in Sergio Vani's phrase, communities of responsibility. We need to build a consensus around the Charter as the way forward. It is a developing document, and I commend it at conference for your consideration. We must, however, work with our democratically elected representatives to develop and construct a better understanding. They, in turn, must listen to and engage with school leadership prior to pour out more legislation and regulation. Irrelevant and bureaucratic initiatives such as license to practice should and must go. Now I wish to turn to the future of the NHT. I am proud, as a West Countryman, to be president of an association which stands up for its members and for the children of this country. We are in a period of change, and I would like to give sincere thanks to the work and positive leadership of Mick Brooks, our General Secretary. We will return to that theme tomorrow. But for now, I would also like to praise the dedication of branch, regional, national council post holders, people who come to annual conference, branch conferences, regional conferences, education conference, who work week in, week out and provide dedicated service to our members across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. We have an able and high-quality team of paid staff at headquarters, and I would like to mark the tragic passing of Ian Foster, a former council member and latterly an education officer at headquarters, whose wit and friendship is much missed. And I know his partner, Lorraine, is in the audience today. In the field, our regional officers ensure the best information and representation is available without any comparators in the land. The NHT defends its membership. Most LA officers, and indeed some Ofsted teams, are fair and professional. Unfortunately, the vast majority of parents and governors are challenging but supportive. But the message must go out loud and clear that the association can no longer tolerate its members having their careers at the mercy of rogue elements and will take these people on, if necessary in the courts, to end the culture of the disappeared. So where now? From another hero, JFK, I turn to say, ask not just what your association can do for you, but ask yourself what you can do for your association. To build upon the excellent foundations of service and support should come professional sharing and development. In the Ontario Principals Council in Canada, 95% of continuing